After my parents were gone, I scraped together some travel money by grinding tofu, clutching that letter full of promises of a good life at the Marquis mansion. I made the bumpy journey to find my elder sister. When I was 8 years old, my drunken father sold my elder sister to the so-called Marquis of Yongning's mansion as a concubine. That marriage was arranged by my father and a glib matchmaker. With a slap of their thighs, they only said the Marquis mansion was in Fuzhou, 1,000 miles away. My elder sister was promised to the Marquis' illegitimate son. My father, with 10 taels of silver in his pocket, grinned from ear to ear. No one knew how he got in touch with the Marquis mansion. He just patted his chest and said that people from the Marquis mansion had taken a liking to my sister's beautiful appearance, and warned us not to spread the word, lest the neighbors try to get involved and cause trouble for my sister. The day my sister left, she didn't cry or make a fuss. She kowtowed 3 times to my mother, who was lying on the kong, and then turned to get into the carriage. I cried until I couldn't catch my breath, and ran after the carriage for a long time, until the dust kicked up by the wheels obscured my vision. Then I walked back sobbing. My mother leaned against the wall wiping her tears, but my father, as if he had found a treasure, used the 10 taels of silver to buy wine. After a gulp of yellow soup, he cursed my mother for being useless, and asked why she was crying, saying my sister was going to enjoy a life of luxury. HMPHU women are so good. You can earn money with a flick of your leg. My father, with spittle flying, said that my sister, being a concubine in the Marquis mansion, was a blessing she had cultivated for 8 lifetimes, and that my sister would have good food and drink from now on. Compared to us common folk, it was like heaven and earth. As he said this, he pinched my cheek hard, with a greedy glint in his eyes, and a toothless wind-blown smile. Fortunately, you 2 girls have good looks. Otherwise I would really be raising you for nothing. You're all money losers. After my sister left, she didn't come home for 6 years. For the first 2 years there was no news at all. My mother took up the stone roller for grinding tofu, and with me we went from street to street banging on the tofu molds, shouting to sell tofu, while inquiring about the Marquis of Yongning's mansion. But no matter how much we asked in every street and alley, there was no news. At that time the sound of coconut shells clattering was filled with my mother's longing for her daughter to come home. Fortunately, in the 3rd year, just before the new year, my sister sent a letter through someone, and also attached a red string. The letter was very short, saying she was doing well at the Marquis mansion, but there were many rules, and that we should worry about her, and definitely not look for her, lest we displease the Marquis. My mother kept the letter close to her chest, and cut the red string in half. She tied the longer piece in my hair, and the shorter piece around her own wrist. My father, however, chased after the messenger and asked for a long time. Hearing that my sister hadn't sent any money, he got so angry that he smashed a bowl on the spot and beat my mother. At that time my mother was already 3 months pregnant. The village shaman said that this pregnancy was likely to be a boy. Only then did my father show mercy. He stopped after hitting her a few times, still muttering curses. If another girl was born, she would be drowned in the chamber pot. Mother endured it silently, and told me again and again, it's not easy for your sister to be a concubine in a prominent family. We can't cause her any trouble. Don't let the Marquis family look down on her. I nodded silently, lying in bed at night, tossing and turning, unable to sleep, always fantasizing that my sister would be favored by her husband, and give birth to a big healthy boy, and then grandly bring me and mother to Fuzhou to enjoy our lives. But just a few days into spring, mother died during childbirth. The fishy blood stained the earthen kong, flowing through the door crack into the yard, like a small stream. All the money at home had already been squandered by father. Mother didn't even have a decent coffin. He rolled her up in a straw mat and carried her up the mountain, and buried her in a hastily dug pit. After burying her he spat, and cursed mother for being useless. At that time I thought, it's best if my sister doesn't have any children, and I don't want to go to Fuzhou to enjoy life anymore. I only hope he can live a peaceful life forever. After mother left, old Shen became even worse. He spent every day at the gambling house, squandering all his assets, until even the winter quilts were pawned. Not long after, he started eyeing me. He wanted to sell me to the gambling house owner's foolish son, in exchange for a few taels of silver to gamble with. I refused to comply. He grabbed a fire poker and beat me until my head was bloody. He tied me up and was about to take me for the arranged meeting. When passing the stone bridge at the village entrance, his foot slipped and he fell into the river. It had rained for 2 days. The river was deep and swift, almost submerging the bridge surface. Father's swimming skills were not bad. He surfaced after a few struggles. His hands clung to the bridge edge trying to climb up. I raised my foot and stomped hard on his hand. He screamed and fell back in, choking on a lot of water, when he with all his might grabbed the bridge edge again and cursed loudly. I had already untied the ropes. The shard of porcelain bowl hidden in my sleeve had been sharpened by me. I cut as I walked, finally cutting through the ropes. I had planned to run into the mountains and hide, but I didn't expect such good fortune. Father's body had long been depleted by wine and women, like a toad lying on its back, his legs flailing in the water. He couldn't climb up no matter what. I picked up a stone by the bridge and raised it above my head. The 6th year after my sister left, I became an orphan. Life became much quieter. I learned to rap like my mother, tied a headscarf and beat the drum to sell tofu, 1 copper coin after another. My sister would still send someone to deliver a letter before the end of the year. I grabbed the messenger and asked how my sister was doing. He always answered vaguely, only saying that my sister was doing well, and that I should bother her when I asked too much. He finally told me that my sister was in Yongli City, Fuzhou. Every night, I would count the copper coins hidden in the stove eye, sleeping with a cleaver, calculating in my heart, when I save enough money I'll go to Yongli City to sell tofu. It's enough to see my sister every few days. I am poor but I don't steal or rob. Not the kind of person who clings to the powerful. I can support myself with my tofu. Absolutely not thinking about the Marquis mansion. But I haven't saved enough money yet. The war has already broken out. The barbarians from the north broke through the border pass. In a few days they reached my hometown. The villagers fled with their families. I also joined the fleeing crowd and ran east. On the way I met a merchant caravan going to Fuzhou. The leader of the caravan was named Su Sanyong, a remarkable person disguised as a man. She took pity on me and gave me a ride. On the way Su Sanyong told me she had searched all the streets and alleys of Fuzhou and had never heard of any Yongning Marquis mansion. I was stunned at that moment. Unwilling to give up I said, perhaps my father misremembered the name of the Marquis mansion. Ajia must be in Fuzhou. Look, I am still wearing the red string he sent me on my head. And so it went. I followed the caravan to Yongli City. Before Su Sanyong left she warned me. The men were aggressive. Even the emperor fled with his concubines. It's not safe here either. Told me to be careful. I thanked him, standing on the bustling street, asking everyone I met about the Yongning Marquis mansion. But no one in the local populace had ever heard of this name. And no one knew who Lin Wanqing was. A chill ran from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. A strong premonition enveloped me like a net. The sky gradually darkened. I was still wandering aimlessly on the street. As a result I ran into a few ruffians in a narrow alley. They were reeking of alcohol, blocking the alley entrance preventing me from leaving, shouting vulgarities calling me Miss AU, come play with us big brothers. I was so scared I almost lost my soul. I kept shouting that they had the wrong person, but they reached out and pulled off my headscarf. In desperation I grabbed the stick in my hand, and smashed it hard on someone's head, turned and ran. Lucky me, as soon as I ran out of the alley, I encountered a patrol of soldiers. I knelt down with a thud, kowtowing and shouting for help. Seeing this the ruffians scattered. I thanked the soldiers, and asked them if they had heard of the Yongning Marquis mansion and Lin Wanqing. The soldiers waved me away impatiently. Only one young soldier who looked about my age shone his torch on my face. His expression changed, and he said in a low voice that he knew a girl who looked 5 parts like me. Ajia and I look extremely alike. It's just that my eyes are a little smaller than hers. Hearing this, I was overjoyed, and followed her without hesitation. We went through 7 turns and twists into a dark narrow alley. The alley became more and more secluded. I felt uneasy, and boldly asked the soldier, "What is your honorable surname?" He paused, and turned back to say, "My name is Chen Ju." I let out a sound. I casually picked up a brick and hid it behind my back. Didn't walk far. Ahead a dilapidated civilian house appeared. The door gods on the door had faded. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't look like a wealthy family's home. I stopped, refused to move forward no matter what. My elder sister entered the Marquis mansion as a noble concubine. How could she live in such a place? Chen Ju turned his head. His eyes were full of pity. There is no Yongning Marquis mansion in Fuzhou at all. Instead it's the top courtesan of Huihong Tower. Sister Yu told me. Her maiden name was Lin. She paused, and then said my general redeemed her, and let her live here temporarily. You go in and take a look. Maybe I recognized the wrong person. I hesitated and walked up, gently knocked on the door. The courtyard was quiet. No one answered. I peeked through the crack in the door. I vaguely saw the candlelight inside flicker. Then it suddenly went out. I was stunned. Chen Ju raised his voice and shouted, "Miss Lin. I am Chen Ju. I am General Lu's man." As soon as he finished speaking, a sound of hurried footsteps came from inside the house, and the muffled sound of tables and chairs falling. Before I could react, the main door creaked open. A woman in a thin outer garment hurriedly asked, Did the general send a message?" He bumped into me. We both froze. In the moonlight her hair was disheveled. Her clothes were untidy, but that face I would never forget in my life. It was my elder sister. I cried out her name hoarsely, "Elder sister." But her face turned ashen. She stared at me intently, then looked at Chen Ju, suddenly clenched her fists, stomped her feet and shouted, "I don't know you." Saying that she pushed me out and was about to close the door. I held onto her waist tightly, crying and begging her elder sister, "Don't drive me away. Mom is dead, Dad is dead too. You're the only family I have left." He beat my arms, then looked at Chen Ju as if begging for help. Chen Ju was even more at a loss than him. Rubbing his hands he scratched his head, and said softly, "I am sorry." After speaking he turned and ran. I refused to let go no matter what. I was afraid that if I let go, my elder sister would disappear again. Elder sister hit me for a while. The force gradually weakened. Finally she sat down on the ground, and hugged me sobbing uncontrollably. The crying echoed in the silent alley, and drifted far, far away. I touched my elder sister's thin back. My heart broke. I am here. From now on, I want to live with my elder sister. The furnishings in the room were very simple, but my elder sister had tidied them up spotlessly. 1 bed, 1 table, 2 chairs, and a wardrobe with a door that wouldn't close. I sat by the table. Sister lit the oil lamp. The two of us faced each other. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally sister spoke first. I arrived in Fuzhou, and only then did I realize the matchmaker was a human trafficker. There was no Marquis of Yongning's mansion at all. That human trafficker was called Wang Lazy. He had a foolish son named Wang Yongning. He casually made up the name Marquis of Yongning's mansion to bully us country folk like we were blind. Wang Lazy was in love with the madam of Huihong Tower. He often engaged in the business of kidnapping women. Sister was kidnapped by him to Fuzhou, and was directly sent into Huihong Tower. The madam was overjoyed to see sister was beautiful, extremely happy. She gave Wang Lazy 50 taels of silver. When sister first entered the brothel, she cried and made a fuss. And she also tried to escape. But every time she was caught she was severely beaten. The worst time, the madam used silver needles to pierce her fingernail beds, and then stripped her naked, hanging her upside down from the beam. She starved her for 3 days and 3 nights. When she was barely alive, they only gave her a little rice soup to keep her alive. Seeing that sister still refused to take clients, the madam tied her up securely and called a group of rich young masters to torment her for a night. The madam sat in the next room, listening to sister's screams and counting the piles of silver, laughing uncontrollably. Sister bled a lot. I thought I was going to die, but somehow I survived. When he told these stories, his tone was frighteningly calm. His eyes were numbly fixed on the flickering flame in the oil lamp. At that time I thought, I must survive. I must go home and see mother and you again. I covered my mouth and cried, unable to say a word. After a long time, I heard him softly ask, did Shen Yi also die? How did he die? I wiped away my tears, lowered my voice and said I killed him. That day father tied me up and took me to the gambling house owner's house. When we passed the stone bridge, I slipped on the moss and fell into the river. It had just rained. The river was deep and fast, almost covering the bridge surface. Father was a decent swimmer. He surfaced after a few struggles, grabbing the edge of the bridge to climb up. I stepped on his hand. He fell back down, choking on a mouthful of water. When he grabbed the bridge edge again, I had already untied myself. The shard of porcelain bowl hidden in my sleeve was something I had prepared long ago. On the way I secretly used the shard to cut the rope. I originally planned to cut it and run into the mountains to hide. I never expected to encounter such a thing. Father was like a fish belly up, struggling in the water, unable to climb up. I picked up a stone from the bridge and raised it above my head. He saw the stone and was terrified, crying and begging for mercy. Dad was wrong. Dad will never gamble again. I knelt by the bridge. Holding a stone I smashed it down on his head. A mist of blood splattered my face. His hands gripping the bridge trembled violently. I hit him 3 times but he didn't let go. He kept shouting, yo, Dad was wrong, please spare me. I was like a demon possessed, muttering Dad in my mouth. Go to hell. When I hit him the 7th time, his hands finally let go. With a gudong sound, he fell into the water, swept away by the swift current. Rushing downstream, I chased him for a while along the riverbank, watching him face down stuck in a pile of rocks, his body swaying in the current, like a rotten fish. Sister was stunned for a long time after listening. Finally she gave a bitter smile. Indeed, that good-for-nothing dad deserved to die. His body was only recovered by the villagers the next day at noon. Everyone thought he had fallen into the water while drunk. As for the wound on his head, it was naturally from hitting the rocks in the river. No one would have thought that I, the honest and simple me, had personally killed my own father. I lifted my clothes, took off the string of coins hidden in my belt. Sister, I've saved some money. Let's leave here. But sister shook her head. I'll wait for General Liu to return. Sister told me, last autumn, General Liu Zheng of Zhenbei redeemed her. The general said he would marry her when the war ended. So she wasn't going anywhere. She would wait here for the general's triumphant return. When she said this, a girlish shyness appeared on her face. Her eyes sparkled in the candlelight. I was speechless. That night sister laid out the bedding. She and I lay on the same bed. I couldn't help but ask sister, if that general truly treats you well, why would he go to that kind of place? If he really wants to marry you, why didn't he send you back home earlier? Sister hurriedly defended herself. The general had just reached Fuzhou. The madam of Quihong Tower sent us to the barracks to please him. He paused and moved to the far side of the bed in a huff, turning his back to me. In short, my general is a good person. Don't talk nonsense. I leaned over to him. Okay, I won't say anything more. But sister, we women have to plan for ourselves. He saved you. We can repay him with money. We can work like oxen and horses. Just don't do bad things. There's a woman in our village. She did bad things for a rich man, things that couldn't see the light of day. She waited by the big willow tree at the village entrance every day for her lover. She got pregnant twice, and both times the man coaxed her into having an abortion. When she grew old and lost her beauty, he officially found an excuse to send her away. Sister has already suffered enough. I don't want her to suffer that kind of pain again. Sister, with her back to me, remained silent for a long time. I let out a soft sigh. How could I not know? His saying he'd marry me was just a joke. His family had been officials for generations. How could they possibly marry a woman from a brothel? But he saved me from a life of misery. I like him. I am willing to wait. I didn't say anything else. I stayed right behind him, greedily inhaling the scent of soap from his hair. Sister, she patted my arm. Don't get so close. I am dirty. But I clung to him even tighter, like when I was little. I rubbed against her back. You smell nice, not dirty at all. I had a stomach full of things I wanted to tell sister, but I was just too tired. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, and finally I closed my eyes. The tears in the corners of my eyes were crushed on the pillow. In the middle of the night I had a nightmare. One moment I dreamed sister was leaving. The next I dreamed mother didn't want me anymore. I woke up in a cold sweat, startled awake. It was already dawn. Sister was lying facing me, her stray hair covering her face. Her hand was still unconsciously stroking my back. When I was little I often had night terrors. Every time I woke up I would be beaten severely. Back then sister would hold me in her arms, staying awake all night with me. As soon as I cried, she would gently pat my back, give me a drink of water, and coax me back to sleep. I reached out my finger, gently brushing his wet corner of his eye. With sister here, it's so good. I stayed at sister's house. The barbarians didn't attack east anymore, but instead pursued the emperor heading south. Everywhere was unstable now. Fuzhou at least had troops guarding it. 2 weak women like us running around would only be more dangerous. The general left sister some silver. It wasn't much and sister living frugally was almost out of it. We didn't know how long this war would last. We couldn't just sit and wait for our savings to run out. I discussed it with sister. How about we set up the tofu stall again? A hint of hesitation flashed across sister's face. Finally she took out all the remaining silver. The stone roller and molds were ready. He gave a wry smile. Sister, I can't get past that hurdle in my heart. I patted my chest and promised it's okay. Sister, you have me. Just you wait and see. From that day on, the scent of beans wafted from sister's small courtyard every day. Sister didn't dare to go out, afraid of being recognized, so she stayed home and helped me grind beans and make tofu. Watching the smile return to his face, my heart also warmed. The skill passed down from mother was indeed not just for show. My tofu was fresh and tender. Every day I knocked on the gong and went to the street. The townspeople would line up with bowls to buy. Everyone praised how delicious it was. After a while, the children on the street all called me Tofu Beauty. Every time I heard that nickname, I couldn't help but think of mother. Thinking of mother holding my hand when I was little. The way she pounded the pestle and sold tofu. Every time I came home, sister would be waiting behind the door. She said from the alley entrance to our home, the sound of the pestle would ring exactly 70 times. I ran into the house with a giggle. Took a piece of pastry from the basket. It was the most expensive red date and walnut cake from Hesunjai in the city. I couldn't bear to buy too much. I only bought 1 piece each time. Sister chided me for it being so expensive, saying it would be better to buy 2 more steamed buns to eat. I leaned next to her and pouted, "Am I greedy?" She snorted, lifted the lid of the pot, and pointed to the fragrant stew inside. "I know you're greedy." I specifically added a spoonful of lard. I held the rice bowl and ate ravenously. After I was full, with plain water I shared that piece of walnut cake with sister. Sister cut the palm-sized cake into 4 small pieces. She ate 1 piece and said she was tired of it. Watching me eat the remaining 3 pieces, she smiled and said, "You're just like mother. You both love these sweet things." As she spoke her eyes turned red. Her voice choked. Did mother hurt when she left? I stayed by her side, watching her pain as she pinched my arm leaving red marks. At first she could still cry out, but then she started bleeding profusely. She could only open her mouth halfway and make a hee-hee sound. She kept calling out, "Wanqing ah, mother misses you, Xiao Ma. I've made things hard for you." Even in death she was thinking of her eldest daughter who was far away. And her orphaned youngest daughter. I didn't dare say these words to sister. I could only lie to her. Mother left peacefully. Before she died she told me to live well with you. Sister wiped away her tears, picked up a piece of tofu and put it in her mouth, and said with a choked voice, "Yes, live on. Live on no matter how difficult the times, we must live on." I went to sell tofu before dawn every day, and when I came back at night I would pester sister, asking her to tell me about her and General Lu. I wanted to know if this man was worth her waiting for. Sister said General Lu was a hero of integrity. When the barbarians broke through the border, even the emperor fled. Only the general refused to retreat, leading his soldiers to fight the barbarians to the death. He even recaptured a city. She also said the general was tall and imposing, but also meticulous. When Lao Bao sent them to the barracks, the general was furious on the spot, and threw everyone out. Only sister lingered, refusing to leave. She said he'll mend the general's clothes for him. If I go back empty-handed, Lao Bao will surely beat me to death. The general tacitly agreed. Sister mended the general's clothes all night. The general sat beside her, looking up at her from time to time. When dawn broke, sister got up to leave. The general suddenly spoke, asking her name. I rested my chin on my hand, listening with great interest. I didn't expect sister and General Lu's acquaintance to be just like what's written in the opera. "Xiao Man, tell me about the general. Will he really marry me?" I smacked my lips, savoring the sweetness of the walnut cake. Absent-mindedly I said, "Does it matter if he marries me or not? I'll make tofu and support you anyway." Sister playfully poked my forehead. "You know tofu. You little girl. Mom and dad are gone. And you're still following me, your sister who came from a brothel. Who would dare marry you in the future?" I said seriously, "What are you afraid of? I can make tofu. I won't starve myself." Sister was amused by my words. She took out a red cloth bundle from the back of the wardrobe. She whispered, "This is some jewelry I've saved. I am keeping it for your dowry. When you meet someone you like in the future, just say your family is gone. Don't mention me." I refused to take the red cloth bundle. I pounced on her and pinned her on the Kong, acting shamelessly. "I am not getting married. I want to stay with sister. When the general marries you, I'll set up a tofu stall outside his house and eavesdrop on him every day." Sister couldn't push me away. She raised her hand and slapped my butt. "You little girl, you have no sense of propriety. When you become an old maid, you'll have something to cry about." As I was playfully teasing sister, I inadvertently spotted a dark shadow flash past the window. My heart tightened. I quickly fumbled for the wood-chopping knife under the pillow. Sister also grabbed the scissors on the table and blocked the door. She shook her head vigorously at me. I peeked through the window crack. I saw a short, thin man standing on the pile of firewood in the yard. He was climbing the wall. As soon as he got on the wall, I suddenly pushed open the window and shouted, "Catch the thief." The man was startled. He fell off the wall with a thud, yelling in pain. The neighbor's dog heard the commotion and started barking wildly. Just as I was about to chase after him, sister pulled me back. She closed the window and held me tightly. Trembling all over, After a while, the footsteps outside gradually faded away. Sister finally let go of me. Her voice trembling, she said, "It's Wang Lazy. It must be him." I saw his face clearly. That night, sister didn't sleep at all. She huddled on the Kong wrapped in a quilt shivering. I sat in the yard and sharpened the wood chopping knife all night. The next morning, I went to the street to sell tofu as usual. I deliberately stuffed a few steamed buns to give to the little beggars at the street corner. I asked them for news about Wang Lazy. Most of the little beggars scattered. Only a little boy named Xiao Shit found told me that Wang Lazy had been very unlucky with gambling lately. He had lost all his property. His precious son had fallen seriously ill, and he urgently needed money to save his life. He was running to pawn shops and pharmacies every day. I sneered inwardly. Serves him right. I gave Xiao Shit an extra steamed bun. And then I started keeping an eye on Wang Lazy. I watched for 3 days and figured out his whereabouts. Every day after leaving the pawn shop, he would pass through a secluded alley. There were only 2 houses on either side of the alley, and no one lived there. I went to Wang Lazy's house. He said he had squandered his fortune. But how could such a grand mansion be acquired without the tears and blood of women? Now he's set his sights on my sister. And maybe me too. I want to kill him. This thought grew wildly in my heart. Finally I felt the time was right. That day, I followed Wang Lazy into that secluded alley. The alley grew narrower and narrower. Wang Lazy seemed to sense something, and suddenly turned around. I quickly dodged behind the wall. When I peeked out again, Wang Lazy had disappeared. My heart panicked, and I quickly chased after him. After running only a few steps, I heard a commotion of footsteps from the alley. I was so scared that I turned and ran. After running only 2 steps, I was suddenly pulled into a nearby courtyard by a hand. The person covered my mouth. I struggled desperately, and raised my cleaver to stab. The person quickly grabbed my wrist, and said urgently, "It's me, Chen Ju." I looked closely, and it was indeed the soldier who had helped me find my sister that day. I asked suspiciously, "What are you doing?" Chen Ju motioned for me to be quiet, and listened by the courtyard gate. After the footsteps faded away, he frowned and said, "I wanted to ask you. You want to kill Wang Lazy?" Of course I wouldn't admit it. Holding the cleaver I said righteously, "No. Is it illegal for me to carry a knife when I go out?" Chen Ju pursed his lips, and advised me, "Don't get yourself into trouble. Wang Lazy's cousin is the county magistrate, and he has many thugs under his command." My eyes welled up with tears, and I asked with a choked voice, "What about when he harmed so many girls? Doesn't he deserve to die?" Chen Ju panicked, and waved his hands. "Of course he deserves to die. I am just afraid you'll suffer. You're just a weak woman. How can you fight against the local bullies?" I didn't have the patience to listen to his nagging. I wiped my tears, and ran past him to get out. I ran all the way home, and threw myself into my sister's arms, and cried loudly. My sister panicked, and hugged me asking, "Xiao man, who bullied you?" This made me cry even harder. As I was crying, I saw freshly baked steamed buns on the table. I picked one up and took a bite. My tears fell even harder. I was unwilling. I wish I were a martial arts master, who could leap over rooftops and run along walls, and fight 10 men at once, and chop off Wang Lazy's dog head with one blow. But I am just a tofu maker, who usually only cuts soft tofu. This morning I was cutting tofu for an old man, and I accidentally cut too much. I was too embarrassed to ask for it back. From that day on, I sharpened my cleaver every night, making the blade shine. After sharpening it for 7 nights, there was a commotion outside the courtyard wall. I grabbed my cleaver and jumped up. Aji also grabbed scissors and rushed out of the house, standing shoulder to shoulder with me. We held our knives and stared at the courtyard wall, watching a dark figure climb over the wall. Just as we were about to act, we saw the face of the person who came. It was Chen Ju. Chen Ju was sitting on the wall, staring at us. Then he threw down a cloth bag, and said in a low voice, "Remember to burn it." After saying that, he jumped off the wall, and ran away like a streak of smoke. Aji and I looked at each other. We hesitated for a long time. Then we bravely opened the cloth bag. In the moonlight, the cloth bag contained a gray jacket. It was covered in bloodstains. I picked up the jacket with my cleaver. Aji suddenly trembled and said, This is Wang Lazy's clothes." I suddenly realized. My hand trembled and the jacket fell to the ground. That night, we followed Chen Ju's instructions, and burned the jacket. In the firelight, the jacket turned into smoke and ash, and it also reddened Aji's eyes. The next morning, the news of Wang Lazy's death spread throughout Yongli City. Some said he went out of the city to find a doctor for his son, and encountered mountain bandits. His head was smashed to pieces, and all his valuables were stolen. The neighbors clapped their hands and cheered, saying he got what he deserved. In a time of war and chaos, it was not unusual for mountain bandits to appear. Only I knew that Chen Ju did it. I was very grateful in my heart, but I didn't know how to repay him. So I started staking out Chen Ju. I waited for several days. Finally, in front of a restaurant, I saw Chen Ju and a few brothers walking out arm in arm. I rushed forward and stopped him. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I forgot what to say. After holding it in for a long time, I finally called out, "Brother Chen." Chen Ju's brothers immediately started teasing, "Yo, whose little lady is this? Chen Ju, you're quite something." Chen Ju's face turned red. He hurriedly explained, "Don't talk nonsense. This is my sister from my hometown." She gave me a look, and signaled me to talk elsewhere. I quickly followed her to the back alley. A burst of laughter came from behind. We found a secluded spot. I lowered my head, twisting the corner of my clothes with my fingers. Chen Ju scratched his head, and looked around for a long time, before quietly asking, "Did you need something from me?" I looked up at him, and shyly said, I came to thank you." Chen Ju coughed lightly, and said a little embarrassed, "You don't need to thank me. This was the general's order. He told me to take good care of your sister. The general left in a hurry. Otherwise he wouldn't have finished speaking. He looked towards the alley entrance again, making sure no one was eavesdropping. Then said, don't worry, my brothers and I are tight-lipped. You live a good life with your sister. I'll head back to the camp first. After Chen Ju finished speaking he ran off in a flash. I watched his retreating figure, and touched my burning cheeks. A drop of kindness received should be repaid with a gushing spring. I always thought I should do something for Chen Ju and his brothers. So I waited every day where Chen Ju usually appeared, bringing him steamed buns and tofu, and even offered to mend his torn clothes. At first Chen Ju was polite with me, but as time went by, he stopped refusing, and even handed me his worn-out cloth shoes, saying with a blush, sorry to trouble you. Those cloth shoes were stinky, and almost made me faint. He wasn't wearing socks, standing barefoot in front of me. His dark toes dug into the ground, wishing he could disappear into a crack in the earth. I held the cloth shoes, and said, trying to suppress a smile, brother Chen, these shoes perhaps, we should just get rid of them? Chen Ju said shyly, I only have this one pair of shoes. I sighed, and led him into the courtyard. First I found a pair of straw sandals for him to wear. Then I prepared a basin of water, to wash the cloth shoes clean. He sat obediently on a small stool, watching me busy myself, his dirty face full of curiosity. Ajia hid in the room, peeking through the window, her eyes full of scrutiny, like a mother tiger protecting her cubs. As soon as the cloth shoes touched water, yellowish dirty water seeped out. I suppressed my disgust, and scrubbed them for a long time with a brush. I muttered to myself after washing these shoes, I probably won't want to eat tofu anymore. While I was scrubbing the shoes, I made small talk with brother Chen. How old are you? Chen Ju scratched his head. 19. And you? I am 16. I replied casually. Then I asked, where is your hometown? Chen Ju's eyes dimmed, and he said in a low voice, Changzhou Dny village. A few years ago there was a flood, and the village was submerged. My parents are gone. I begged for food for 3 years. Later I met the general, and followed him to become a soldier. He said the general had taken in 9 orphans like him, and they all called the general master. The general treated them like brothers, and never put on airs. I listened intently, and asked how old is General Lu? Chen Ju counted on his fingers. Next year he'll be 38. I immediately pursed my lips, muttering to myself, he's 18 years older than my sister. Isn't this an old ox eating young grass? Chen Ju saw my displeasure, and quickly defended the general. Our general is a distinguished-looking man. Your sister won't be at a disadvantage. I looked at him with disbelief. Is it as good-looking as you? Chen Ju's eyebrows and eyes were delicate. If you wash your face clean. He looked like a handsome scholar. He was stunned for a moment. His face instantly turned as red as a ripe pomegranate. He stood up in a panic. I have something else to do. I am leaving now, he said. He grabbed the straw sandal and ran away without looking back. I watched his retreating figure. Then I looked at the cloth shoes in the basin. I was bewildered. Did I say something wrong? Those cloth shoes were too worn to be mended. I had no choice but to beg my sister to make a new pair of shoes for Chen Ju. When my sister was sewing shoes, she would look up at me from time to time, hesitating to speak. Her brows were tightly furrowed. When the new shoes were finished, he finally couldn't help but ask me, Xiaoman, do you like Chen Ju? I was about to go sell tofu. Hearing this, the stick in my hand fell to the ground with a clatter. It hit my toe. I gritted my teeth in pain. I hurriedly explained, no, I just feel like I owe him a favor. My sister ignored my explanation. She said to herself, Chen Ju seems like a decent kid. When the general returns, I'll ask him to arrange a marriage for you. No, I was so anxious that I started to stutter. Sister, I never thought about getting married. My sister didn't listen to me at all. She took out the red cloth bag and counted the jewelry inside. She muttered, this will all be your dowry. Seeing that she wasn't paying attention to me, I turned to slip away. Sister Jia was quick. She grabbed a bean, and accurately hit me on the forehead. Where are you running? I haven't finished speaking. Come back early. I covered my forehead and grumbled to myself, Jia, when did you become so accurate? I tucked the new shoes into my arms, and pushed the tofu cart out the door. After selling the tofu, I went to wait for Chen Ju as usual. I hadn't waited for him yet, when I saw a group of young beggars fighting at the street corner. Little Stone, who had pointed the way for me before, was pinned to the ground by a few older children. He was beaten black and blue. The group of children were fighting and cursing. Beat to death, you effeminate dog. I was so angry. I rushed forward and pulled them apart. HMPH, all of you are unfortunate children. What kind of skill is it to bully others? A slightly older beggar said indifferently. Who told him to be a sissy? Just looking at him makes me angry. After saying that, the group of beggars scattered. I helped Little Stone up. He covered his head and sobbed softly. There was a wet patch on his pants. My heart ached. I took him home. I wanted him to change out of his wet pants, so I could wash them for him. But he held onto his waist tightly. His little face was pale. His eyes were full of fear. Sister came out of the house, glanced at Little Stone, whispered to me, you go inside first. I'll wash him. I don't know what Sister said to Little Stone. By the time I finished cooking, Little Stone had already washed his face, and was sitting on a small stool, letting Sister dry his hair. His big eyes darted around, occasionally stealing glances at Sister. That night the three of us ate a warm meal together. Little Stone lowered his head, only focused on shoveling rice, not daring to pick up any dishes. I picked up a chopstick full of food and put it in her bowl, saying, there's more if you want. Unexpectedly she suddenly started crying, while eating all the food in her bowl clean. That night, Little Stone slept at the foot of the Kong. He was a small ball curled up in the corner of the wall. Tears still on his face. Sister sat beside him, fanning him with a palm leaf fan for half the night. When he fell asleep, Sister gave me a look. The two of us walked into the yard. Under the moonlight, Sister softly said, "I want to adopt him." I was stunned. Sister looked at me, a hint of bitterness in her eyes. Old Juan gave me something that made me unable to have children. I can't have children in this life. Little Stone, like me, is also an unfortunate person. It's good for us to keep each other company. And so, our small home with Sister gained a younger brother. Little Stone is 8 years old this year. Wash your face clean, red lips and white teeth. She is a beautiful child. He is sensible to the point of being heartbreaking. Every day before dawn he gets up to help me grind beans. Help my sister wash clothes and sweep the floor. After getting familiar, he then told me about his life experience. He is like me. His mother died early. There are many siblings in the family. He couldn't afford to raise him. So he had a wicked idea. There was an old eunuch in their village. He had served the empress in the palace in his early years. He saved a lot of money after leaving the palace in his old age. Built a large house. One day he drank too much. Looking at a group of children waiting to be fed, suddenly felt that being a eunuch was good. Can eat well and drink spicy. So his father lost his mind. He pressed the youngest Little Stone on the table, pulled down his pants, spat some wine on the cleaver. One cut down. Little Stone was lucky to survive. The screams attracted the neighbor aunt. Sent him to the doctor. He barely managed to save his life. He was still not dead. Felt that he had found a good way out for his son. When Little Stone's injury got better, he took him to find the old eunuch. Wanted the old eunuch to recommend him to the palace. As a result, the old eunuch laughed heartily. After laughing, he covered his nose and said disdainfully, "Idiot. Is the imperial palace that easy to enter? You castrated your son like a piglet. It's hard to say if we can survive. Bad luck until this moment." He only realized later that he had caused a great disaster. Little Stone's injury never healed. He suspected he was a burden. He was thrown into the deep mountains and old forests. Little Stone was tough. He didn't die and ran out of the mountains, begging all the way. He followed the refugees and came to Yongli City. I gently held her. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. In this world, it's not just women who suffer. The lives of the poor are thinner than paper. I will make tofu. Sister will weave cloth. Raising another child is just a matter of adding a pair of bowls and chopsticks. When I save enough money, I'll open a shop. Open a tofu shop. Maybe I can even become a big shopkeeper. Life seems to be getting more hopeful. But it wasn't long. One evening, Chen Ju suddenly knocked on my door. He threw a bag of flour into the yard, staring at me intently. His Adam's apple moved for a long time. Then he said, "Xiao man, do you still have tofu?" I was stunned for a moment. I said blankly, "It's sold out." "What's wrong?" He smiled. His smile carried a hint of bitterness. "I am leaving. Going to fight the barbarians. I don't know when I'll be back after this. I just miss your tofu a little." My heart panicked. My words stumbled. "I'll make more tomorrow." Chen Ju waved his hands repeatedly. "No need, I am leaving now." "Xiao man, you." He paused. He took out a silver hairpin from his Y and handed it to me. "I don't have much money. I can only afford this. Consider it payment for the new shoes." The silver hairpin was adorned with a small flower. Very exquisite. I solemnly accepted the silver hairpin. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by something. I couldn't help but grab his sleeve. "Chen Ju, you must come back." He nodded. His eyes sparkled as he looked at me. "I'll be back. Earn military merits. I'll get you a whole set of jewelry." Chen Ju left late that night. I walked him a long way. He never looked back. I didn't dare to call his name. Just sticking to the side of the street. I followed him to the city gate. He mixed in with the crowd, wearing worn-out cloth armor. No different from other soldiers. But I could recognize his back at a glance. The night wind blew. It messed up my hair and scattered the sound of hooves. The people in the city say the battlefield is very dangerous. Some say a family sent all 5 sons to the battlefield. Only one returned in the end. And lost both legs. Had to beg with his old mother. He was run over by a carriage and died. A pitiful sight. My heart pounded with fear. Every day when I got home, I'd close the door and count the silver ID saved. I thought, what if Chen Ju became crippled or lost his mind? The court wouldn't care about him. I would ID support him for a lifetime. Seeing me lost in thought, my elder sister comforted me, saying, "Little Stone went to inquire about Chen Ju. They've gone to rendezvous with General Lu's main force. General Lu is a formidable warrior. With him there, Chen Ju will surely return safely." I touched the silver hairpin on my head, forcing a smile. "He'll definitely come back. He still wants to eat the tofu I make." The days passed one by one. I continued to grind and sell tofu as usual every day. Little Stone had grown quite a bit taller. And stronger too. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the year. My elder sister made new clothes for Little Stone and me. We had originally planned to buy some meat to celebrate the new year properly. But ever since the barbarians breached the pass, everything had become outrageously expensive. Only my tofu was still affordable. In the end, after much discussion, we only bought some offal. At least we had something to eat. On New Year's Eve, it was bitterly cold. Sister Gia cut out paper cuts for the windows. Little Stone cleaned the courtyard. I went to deliver tofu to a family in the north of the city. When I returned, I suddenly heard someone on the street shouting that the Zhenbei army was back. Instantly the entire street descended into chaos. Vendors hastily packed up their stalls. An old woman with white hair leaning on a cane hobbled towards the city gate looking. The sound of hooves grew closer. Someone couldn't help but shout out their son's name. But soon the noise on the street died down. I squeezed through the crowd. straining to see ahead. This Zhenbei army was in disarray, their armor lost. The ranks were sparse, and the soldiers were all wounded, utterly exhausted, and they were all unfamiliar faces. There was no Chen Ju, nor General Lu. An old woman grabbed a gaunt young general, and cried, "General, where did you retreat from?" "My son is named Zhang Da. He became a commander last year." "How is he?" The young general stopped, his expression filled with sorrow. He coughed for a long time, only managing to say, "I am sorry." The people immediately panicked. I was also frantic. I followed the troops as they set up camp. I secretly pulled aside a young soldier, pressed some silver into his hand, and urgently asked, "Brother, what happened?" The young soldier didn't take the silver. He wiped his tears with his dirty sleeve, and sobbed as he spoke. "It's all over. The dog emperor betrayed us. We held on for over half a year, ran out of supplies, and couldn't hold on any longer. The general is gone. The Zhenbei army is gone. Everything is gone." The end of the year, the eve of the new year, had become a gate to hell. This year's hurdle, the emperor who indulged in debauchery in the south. No household was spared. The bad news spread like wings throughout Yongli City. Within 3 days, the city was filled with mourning. Cries shook the heavens. Only then did we know. The barbarians had given up the pursuit. The emperor proposed to rule jointly with the court. The emperor actually acquiesced, with no worries about the rear. The barbarians concentrated their elite forces to attack the north. General Lu's main army was annihilated by the barbarians, cut off from supplies. The soldiers dug up even tree roots. But the emperor in the far south turned a deaf ear, only cared about his temporary palace, seeking immortality and medicine. Heaven has no eyes at all. The damned live well. Those who should die are gone so easily. In the history books, their sacrifice is but a few strokes. In early November, General Zhenbei Lu Zhang died on the battlefield. His body was taken by the barbarians. Chen Ju's team, as the last reinforcement, was ambushed on the way, annihilated. Out of the S0000 Zhenbei army, only a few hundred survived. A deputy general under General Lu led the wounded soldiers to break through the encirclement, and defected to the only prince still resisting in the royal family, Prince Yin. Ordered to be stationed in Yongli City, but Prince Yin had less than 20,000 soldiers left. Facing the barbarian cavalry, it was like throwing stones at an egg. Outside Fuzhou City were all barbarian troops. We were trapped. I closed the door tightly, sat by the Kong, and fed my sister a mouthful of hot water. My sister had been sick for 3 days, with a high fever that wouldn't subside. She woke up crying, and as she cried, the light in her eyes dimmed bit by bit. I had no time to cry. These days, while the city wasn't in chaos yet, I desperately bought food, and also bought paper money. While my sister was asleep, Xiao Shitong and I drew 2 circles in the yard, and burned paper money for General Lu and Chen Ju. Back in the room, my sister woke up, and weakly called me Xiaoman. I quickly held her hand. "Sister, I am here." She looked at me. Her lips trembled for a long time, then suddenly raised her hand and slapped herself hard, crying, "Sister has harmed you. Sister should have let you stay. I've killed you." I held her hand, just like when she used to comfort me when I was little, gently patting her back. "It's not your fault, sister. I don't blame you at all. In this chaotic world, it's not easy for ordinary people to survive. Who can predict the future? We can only take it one step at a time." I wiped away her tears, and imitating my mother, hummed a childhood nursery rhyme. "In September, the ripe wheat is yellow and every household smells of bean curd. The millstone rings. May there be no illness or injury." After the barbarians surrounded the city, the food ran out quickly. Famine spread throughout Fuzhou City. Worse still, the barbarians captured one city and massacred everyone in it. Mountains of corpses piled up outside the city. The stench drifted for dozens of miles, and brought on a plague. The young general stationed there gathered all the remaining food in the city, and promised to protect the people with his life. But General Lu's death had already eroded the people's last shred of trust in the imperial court. Some people secretly abandoned the city and fled, hoping to go south and join relatives. But as soon as they reached the riverbank, they were met with a sky-covering volley of arrows, and the owner of the rice shop just a street away from us was the first to escape. In the end, only his youngest son escaped back, covered in arrows and wounds. He said he saw his parents and elder brother with his own eyes, shot into sieves by sharp arrows. He was running back holding his 5-year-old sister, and was chased by a barbarian on horseback. With a thrust of his spear, his sister was pierced through and through, and hung high on the tip of the spear. The barbarian shouted, excited like a jackal. He pretended to be dead to escape. He crawled for a long time, and encountered a militia, and managed to save his life. Unfortunately, his injuries were too severe, and he died the next day. After his death, no one collected his body. The neighbors rushed into his rice shop, and frantically looted the grain. The wall of my house was also torn down several times. The ones who dug it up were the little beggars on the street, trying to find something to eat. I had no choice but to harden my heart, and drive them away. Then with my elder sister, we sharpened all the knives in the house, and cut 2 wooden sticks to use as weapons. We didn't dare to sleep soundly at night, huddled by the door with our knives on guard. But it wasn't long before another group arrived. They rammed the courtyard gate, and climbed over the wall, shouting obscenities at Aiue. "Come out and play with us, sister. Your pretty face is dead anyway. Why don't you follow me? I'll give you 3 copper coins." These bastards. When General Lu was alive, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Now that the general is dead, they're eager to jump out. The dilapidated courtyard gate was being rammed with a loud bang. Little Stone could barely hold on, crying anxiously. I used a bamboo pole to fiercely beat the people climbing the wall. One of them climbed over the wall, and spat a mouthful of phlegm at me. Cursing, I heard you're Ayu's sister. You little bitch too. Have you tasted a man yet? He said as he was about to jump into the courtyard. Just then, a voice suddenly boomed, "I'll fight you to the death." My elder sister, who was always gentle and kind, suddenly rushed out with a woodcutting knife. Little Stone hadn't even reacted when my elder sister rammed open the courtyard gate and swung her knife down at a man as thin as a monkey. The thin monkey's head. The bag looked like a watermelon that had been split open. Blood gushed out instantly. He screamed. He rolled on the ground clutching his head. Sister with red eyes chased after them hacking. She shouted, "I'll kill you. How dare you touch my sister? I'll kill you." I quickly chased after them, watching sister go mad, chasing the 4 ruffians, making them scramble away. The one with the bald head ran the fastest. In a panic, he lost his way. He ran headfirst into a wall. He just turned his head. Sister's cleaver swung down. It cleanly lopped off one of his ears. He's crazy, he's crazy. The bald-headed man was so scared he wet himself. Dragged by his subordinates, he scrambled out of the alley. Under the moonlight, sister stood trembling, holding the cleaver. Her chest heaved. She roared with all her might. Years of grievance and pain. Finally, at this moment, all were released. Finally, she collapsed on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, like a child. War turned people into madmen. The court is unreliable. We can only rely on ourselves. After sister's outburst, those ruffians never dared to come again. But after a few days, at night, Little Stone went out to relieve himself. Suddenly let out a piercing scream. I ran out without even putting on my shoes. I saw Little Stone kneeling in the courtyard with sister, crying heartbrokenly. My heart tightened. I quickly ran over. Sister slowly stood up. She turned her head holding a pair of scissors. The scissors were still dripping blood. Scattered hair lay on the ground. Her face was covered in crisscrossing wounds, and blood flowed down her neck onto her chest. I looked at her. My feet felt as if they were cast in lead. I walked towards her step by step. My voice trembled. "It hurts so much." Sister smiled. She tied her remaining hair into a man's topknot. "Don't worry," she said, "I have it under control. I won't die. Other families have men to guard them. In our family, I am the eldest sister. I will guard." From that day on, sister with scars all over her face no longer hid from people. The food in the city was completely gone. Sister and I went. Yongli City on the outskirts was in a bad location. There were no farms outside the city, only a small patch of woods. Like everyone else, we stripped bark from trees, dug up roots, and looked for wild vegetables. When people are fighting for their lives, they don't care about dignity. The wealthy families who used to live in luxury also lowered themselves and had their servants dig for wild vegetables. Sister with quick hands snatched their wild vegetables. Those people cursed angrily. Sister retorted without politeness, not yielding an inch. A garrulous old woman recognized her. Sister shouted in a shrill voice, "Isn't this Aiwei from Quihong Tower? You ruined your face and now you want to pretend to be a chaste woman? You're a piece of trash who's been ridden by 1,000 men and pressed by 10,000. Why didn't you die in a brothel?" I was so angry I was trembling all over. I grabbed a handful of mud and slapped it all over his face. Then I grabbed his hair and wrestled with him. I shouted, "You bully the weak and fear the strong, you old prostitute. When your husband was kidnapping women, why didn't you dare to speak up? Now you have the guts to scold the suffering. I'll rip your mouth apart." That big guy was fat, but after starving for so long he had no strength left. I started working in the fields when I was 7, so I have plenty of strength. I pulled out a large lock of his hair. I grabbed a handful of cow dung and stuffed it into his mouth. Sister was afraid I'd kill someone, so she quickly pulled me away. Before leaving, she didn't forget to take from the large basket a handful of wild vegetables. After this incident, no one dared to provoke us again, partly out of fear, and partly because they were too weak from hunger. Months later, people in the city began to starve to death. That gossipy big woman was among the first to starve. I heard from the neighbors that her husband and son refused to give her any food. In desperation, she ate guanyin soil, and finally bloated to death. Her body was exchanged by her husband to a neighbor, and the neighbor exchanged their starved daughter to them. In the morning mist, the smell of blood mixed with the aroma of meat wafted from one courtyard to another. When I was little, the village teacher told stories of the Duke of Yi's childhood. Back then I only thought it was scary. Now I know this is not a story, but a living reality. A few days later, our family's food also ran out. My sister shao shit too, and I could only drink a thin porridge once a day. After drinking, we would lie on the kong, too weak to even speak. My sister ate the least. Her face had already swollen, and she spoke weakly. "If this continues, we will starve to death sooner or later." I decided to go to the outskirts of the city to try my luck, even if I could only dig up some tree roots. But recently barbarian scouts have been appearing frequently outside the city. Not long ago, a family of 3 went out of the city. The youngest son was beheaded by a barbarian. The old couple ran back in a daze, shouting that the outside was full of ghosts. Sister forbade me to go out, but I was starving to this extent. How could I care about the danger? I glanced at my sister, who was dozing against the wall, pulled Xiao Shit Tu over and whispered, "Xiao Shit Tu, be good. Stay home and look after big sister. Sister will go find food for you. I'll be back soon. Second sister, come back soon." I carried my bamboo basket and tiptoed out the door. I headed west of the city. The city was lifeless, with people starving to death everywhere. Crows circled overhead, their caws making my heart panic. A beggar at the street corner had been dead for a long time, his legs picked clean by crows down to the bone. I forced myself to suppress my nausea and walked around him. Suddenly I saw a tall man walking out of a butcher shop. He adjusted the body on the ground, grabbed a human leg and dragged it into the shop. I was so scared I went cold all over. suddenly met his gaze. His eyes were red and staring at me, like staring at a piece of fatty meat. I didn't dare to linger, quickened my pace and ran out of the city. The bark of the trees in the suburbs had long been stripped off. I searched for a long time. Only then did I dig up some roots and a small wild vegetable. I stuffed the wild vegetable into my mouth. Chewing made my mouth bitter. Then carefully walked back. As soon as I got home, I saw my elder sister running out of the courtyard gate in a panic, grabbing my hand and asking anxiously, "Xiao man, you're back. Where is Xiao Shitong?" My elder sister woke up from a nap and found Xiao Shitong missing. The courtyard gate was locked from the inside. He must have climbed over the wall by stepping on the woodpile. Xiao Shitong has always been very well behaved. He must have climbed over the wall because he was afraid of bad people coming in. But why did he go out? I calmed myself down and split up with my elder sister to search. I was afraid Xiao Shitong was worried about me and went out of the city to find me. So I ran towards the west of the city. When I reached the street corner, I saw a small beggar flash by. I chased after him in 3 quick steps and caught him. "Have you seen Xiao Shitong?" The little beggar's eyes darted around, clutching tightly what was in his arms. I didn't see him. My heart sank. I snatched what was in his arms. It was a piece of meat the size of a palm. Bloody, clearly freshly cut. Where did the meat come from at this time? I was so angry I was trembling all over. I grabbed the little beggar's neck and roared, "Where is Xiao Shitong? Where is my brother?" The little beggar's eyes rolled back as I choked him. He raised his finger with difficulty and pointed in the direction of the butcher shop. My head buzzed and went blank. I pushed the little beggar away and rushed to the butcher shop like a madwoman, smashing the door with all my might. "Open the door, open the door." I heard the sound of water boiling from inside the shop. I was so anxious. I moved a stone to stand on and tried to climb into the courtyard, but as soon as I climbed onto the wall, I was fiercely pulled down by a pair of strong arms. I fell heavily to the ground. My internal organs felt like they had shifted, and I spat out a mouthful of blood. The smell of blood in the courtyard assailed my nostrils. Not far away, a large copper pot was boiling vigorously. The water in the pot was steaming. 2 pieces of meat were hanging on the courtyard wall, with arms and legs, clearly human. The butcher muttered, "Too thin. Not tasty, not tasty," saying that he picked up a wooden stick and swung it at my head. I suddenly rolled to the side. The wooden stick hit the ground and broke into 2 pieces. The bloody taste in my throat made me uncomfortable. I struggled to stand up, looking at the butcher who was closing in, and frantically searched for a weapon. At this moment, I saw a pair of small hands exposed on the ground inside the house. The little stone lay face down on the ground, motionless. Beneath him was a pool of black and red blood. My blood rushed to my head. The moment the butcher lunged at me, I suddenly crouched down. I rammed my head into his stomach. I fiercely stabbed his thigh with the silver hairpin in my hand. The butcher screamed. He punched me hard on the back of the neck. My vision went black. I almost passed out. I gritted my teeth and endured the pain. Using all my strength, I flipped him onto the ground. Behind him was the boiling hot pot. The butcher's massive body knocked over the pot. Boiling water poured all over him. His screams echoed through the sky. I pulled out the silver hairpin. I fiercely stabbed the butcher in the neck. Blood splattered all over my face. Before dying, he reached out and grabbed my neck. I couldn't breathe, being choked. But I didn't stop. I stabbed him again and again, until his neck was mangled. The butcher finally stopped moving. His eyes were wide open. The flesh on his face was scorched black. He was still mumbling in his mouth. I collapsed on the ground, exhausted. After a long while, I struggled to get up. Limping, I walked into the house. I tripped on the threshold and fell in front of Little Stone. Little Stone, I reached out, wiping his cold little face. Sister is here to save you." I picked him up. His eyes were half open. His mouth was slightly ajar. I lifted his clothes and saw that a large piece of flesh was missing from his stomach. Blood was still flowing out. I ran out of the butcher shop with him in my arms, running wildly in the empty street, crying for help. "Help me save my brother. Help!" From afar, a G heard my cries. He stumbled over. He looked at me and Stone covered in blood, and was so scared his legs went weak. He fell a few times before crawling over to hug us. Just then, Little Stone suddenly woke up. He looked at me with vacant eyes, then looked at his sister, who was crying like a tearful person. He said in a weak voice, "Sister, I am so hungry and in so much pain." Sister took Little Stone from my arms and ran towards the pharmacy with him. She said incoherently, "Little Stone, don't be afraid, Sister will save you. Sister will definitely save you." I followed behind, limping, listening to Little Stone intermittently say, "Little Sanzi." He said he found something to eat and wanted to share it with me. His little head swayed in Sister's arms. He looked at me and said softly, "Second sister, I am sorry I wasn't good." We reached the pharmacy, but the door was tightly shut. I desperately pounded on the door. It was silent inside. Empty. I desperately pounded on the door. It was silent inside. Empty. Big sister sat on the steps holding Little Stone. She kissed Little Stone's forehead, holding her tightly. Cold little hands. She was like a shattered porcelain doll. The light in her eyes dimmed bit by bit. Finally, she kept calling out "Sister" intermittently. Little Stone was dead. He was less than 10 years old when he died. Big sister sat in the yard holding his body for a whole night. When dawn broke, I saw half of his hair had turned white. We dug a small dirt pit in the yard and buried Little Stone. We forgot to ask his surname, so we wrote "Tomb of Lee Little Stone" on the tombstone. After burying Little Stone, Big sister and I, carrying knives, went to find the scoundrel who lured Little Stone out. We searched the entire city. Finally, in a dilapidated temple, we saw a group of beggars surrounding a pot eating. The beggars were scrambling for the meat in the pot like hungry ghosts. Their faces showed numb satisfaction. I pulled Big Sister and stiffly left. The chewing sounds from behind and the aroma of meat from the pot were nauseating. I suddenly couldn't tell if this was the human world or hell. Perhaps this is the human world. Because in hell there is still King Yama to uphold justice. But the human world doesn't. Not many people are left alive in Yangli City. Those who escaped were killed by the barbarians. Those who stayed starved to death. And then were eaten. Half of the city guards starved to death. Half died from worsening wounds. The remaining people still guarded the city walls, gazing into the hopeless distance. At night I curled up in Big Sister's arms. My whole body ached terribly. I didn't know if it was from the beating or heartache. I vomited out all the water I had drunk. Drowsily I said, Big Sister, I feel so unwell. Comfort me. Big Sister moistened my lips with warm water. Her hand gently rubbed my back. She repeatedly chanted, Shao Man. Don't sleep, don't leave me. I didn't want Big Sister to cry. But my eyelids were as heavy as lead. Little Stone's death was like a nail, nailing down all my expectations for this world. My vigorous vitality seemed to have been extinguished by that boiling water. The only thought supporting me to live was, if I die, what will Big Sister do? In the end, Big Sister snatched me back from the King of Hell. She found a bird's egg from somewhere. She fed me the raw egg liquid bit by bit, and literally pulled me back from the gates of hell, while she herself was too weak to stand from hunger. She weakly said, I saw Mother. She blames me for living meaninglessly, blames me for not taking good care of my younger brothers and sisters. I couldn't find another bird's egg, so I could only cry and say, that's a wandering ghost tricking you. Mother would only ask if you've eaten enough. Are you cold? How could she blame you? A flicker of light flashed in Big Sister's hollow eyes. She held my hand and whispered, Shao Man, is someone knocking? I froze for a moment and perked up my ears. Prick up your ears. Someone is really knocking on the door. I stumbled over and ran towards it. I pressed myself against the door crack and looked out. 2 soldiers were standing outside the door, wearing the same leather armor as Chen Ju. They whispered to each other, is no one home here either? All were too late. I immediately felt like I had seen a savior. I shouted, someone's here. We're still alive. Prince Ying brought troops to seize the barbarians' grain and fodder, and delivered life-saving food to Yangli City. Large pots were set up on the streets. Bowls of thin porridge saved lives. Those soldiers were dark-skinned and thin, but very talkative. They talked about Prince Ying with great admiration. The prince and General Lu are good friends. General Lu taught the prince archery and horsemanship. The prince, like General Lu, is good to us poor people. He said that after driving away the barbarians, he would divide the land among us. Sister, holding a bowl of porridge, listened quietly. A smile appeared on her lips. Each household received a little food. Not much, but enough for us to survive. After regaining some strength, Sister and I sat before Little Stone's grave. In the moonlight, weaving straw sandals, Sister suddenly started talking about General Lu. I heard them say. Sister's voice was very soft. When the general died, the barbarians hated him to the bone and cut off his head, but his body remained standing, not falling. The needle and thread in my hand suddenly pricked my finger. I secretly looked at Sister. She wasn't crying. She was just gently threading the needle and talking to herself. I knew my man was a hero of integrity. After saying that, she gently touched Little Stone's grave. General, please take good care of Little Stone over there, and bless my little man to be safe and sound. Sister was so thin she looked like a different person. Her face full of scars. Her hair disheveled. She looked like an old woman. But in my eyes, she was still the gentle and beautiful Sister. Sister gave the woven straw sandals to the soldiers who delivered the food. The soldiers thanked her profusely, but were reluctant to wear them. They tied ropes to the straw sandals and hung them around their necks, still wearing their tattered old shoes. With the food, the city gradually came back to life. The people began to say, after the war is over, we'll go back to our hometowns to farm. At least farming won't lead to starvation. I also started to miss the taste of tofu. I want to wait until the war is over, and the soldiers come to eat the tofu I make. I won't charge them a single cent, as long as they can eat their fill. We waited and finally welcomed Prince Ying's second batch of grain and fodder. The people cheered and rejoiced, and voluntarily helped to move the grain. Sister and I also went along. As soon as we left the city gate, we saw dust flying in the distance. A group of horsemen was rapidly approaching. A group of people is rapidly approaching. I was about to step forward to help. Suddenly I saw the way those people were dressed. My heart sank to the bottom of the abyss. It's barbarians, I screamed. It's barbarians. Run. The common people were terrified out of their wits, screaming and running back into the city. The soldiers guarding the city were caught completely off guard. They hastily picked up their weapons to fight. Someone shouted to close the city gate. Quick, close the city gate. Too late. The barbarians' warhorses blinked, and were at the city gate in the blink of an eye. A dense rain of arrows descended like a dark cloud. The few soldiers standing in front were instantly shot full of holes. That rickety city gate hadn't even had time to close before it was rammed open by the barbarians' warhorses. The barbarians' cavalry charged into the city. They swung their whips and roared. In the chaos, a child accidentally fell. His mother couldn't save him in time, and could only watch as the hooves fell, crushing the child into a pulp. I held onto Aji's hand tightly. Behind us were barbarians wielding curved swords. I didn't know where to run. I could only pull Ajia and flee into a civilian house in a panic. I bolted the door and huddled behind the door with Ajia, shaking all over. The sound of clashing swords outside the door, the neighing of warhorses, the screams of the common people echoed all around. The sound was like a soul-snatching ghost, striking my heart again and again. After a long time, the sounds outside gradually subsided. Ajia and I hugged each other. barely daring to breathe. Suddenly heavy footsteps approached. The footsteps grew closer and closer, and finally stopped at the door. Then came a thunderous crash as the door was kicked open. I trembled all over with fear, and hugged Ajia even tighter. The door was kicked open. A barbarian with a brutish face walked in. He scanned the room. His gaze fell on Ajia and me, and he revealed a greedy smile. He strode over, grabbed my hair, and laughed heartily. He spoke fluent Chinese. What a woman. A beautiful woman. I struggled desperately, and raised my silver hairpin to stab him, but he punched me in the stomach. Intense pain struck me, and I collapsed to the ground like a rag doll. Ajia and I were dragged out onto the street by him. The street was crowded with captured civilians. Everyone was kneeling on the ground trembling. The barbarians dragged out the captured soldiers one by one, and beat them half to death with whips. Then they tied them up in a row and pressed them to the ground. One of the soldiers was the one who had brought us food before. His arm was broken, but he still raised his head and cursed fiercely. A barbarian raised a long saber and chopped off his head as if cutting a watermelon. The head rolled to the ground, his eyes still wide open, as if silently screaming. Immediately after, another soldier fell in a pool of blood. The barbarians still weren't satisfied. They rode their horses over the bodies of the soldiers, until the bodies were trampled into a bloody mess. I coughed for a long time before I could catch my breath. Sister held me tightly, pressed my head into her embrace, not letting me see. The barbarians' swords were stained with blood. The surrounding people cried in unison. Just then, a sharp voice suddenly rang out, "Don't kill me. I am the old madam from Quihong Tower. I'll bring you women." Then an old woman appeared. She scrambled on all fours to the barbarians, bowing her head like pounding garlic. "I know who is the most beautiful. Her name is Lin Wanqing. She is General Lu's woman. Everyone knows." The barbarians hated General Lu to the bone. The knife hanging over the old madam's neck indeed stopped. A barbarian general looked at the crowd with interest. "Where is she?" The old madam turned back proudly. Her gaze swept across the crowd. Then she froze. She didn't recognize Sister. The barbarian general grew impatient. He casually grabbed a young girl and questioned the old madam, "Is it her?" The girl was terrified out of her wits, struggling desperately. "It's not me." The old madam waved her hands frantically. Just as she was about to explain, she saw the barbarian raise his sword. She quickly changed her tune. "Yes, it is her, it is her." The barbarian general smiled sinisterly. With a big pull, the girl's coarse cloth, her clothes were instantly torn open with a large rip, revealing her thin undergarments. The girl trembled like a sieve from fear. Her shrill cries pierced the dead silence of the street. Her mother rushed forward like a madwoman, grabbed the barbarian's leg and begged, but was kicked far away, hitting the corner of the wall, spitting up blood. Unable to move, the onlookers dared not speak out of anger. Everyone lowered their heads, trembling like fallen leaves in the autumn wind. The barbarian general's sword was already aimed at the girl's neck. At this critical moment, Sister suddenly pushed my hand away and stood up with a stoop. His figure was as thin as a piece of paper, but he stubbornly blocked the barbarian's sight. "I am Lin Wanqing." Sister's voice was very soft, but it was like a thunderclap that exploded in the crowd. The barbarians turned their heads in unison, looking him up and down. His face was covered in scars. His hair was a mess of white, wearing washed-out coarse cloth clothes. He didn't look like a beauty at all. The leading barbarian was stunned, then burst into a burst of laughter. "You looking like this? Are you worthy of being Lu Zheng's woman?" Sister tidied his messy hair and straightened his back. In the morning light his eyes were astonishingly bright. "I am Iwei from Quihong Tower back then." The old madam's eyes widened. Ling stepped forward and examined him carefully for a long time. Suddenly slapped his thigh, screamed, "It's him, it's Lin Wanqing." Scratched my face. I almost didn't recognize these eyes. No mistake, the barbarian general's face sank. He waved his hand. His subordinates immediately stepped forward and twisted my sister's arm. My sister frowned in pain, but gritted her teeth and didn't make a sound. My eyes were red as if about to bleed. My mind was blank. I suddenly pushed away the barbarian beside me, rushed to my sister's side, shouted, "You've got the wrong person. I am Lin Wanqing. She is my sister. She's crazy." I took off the silver hairpin from my head, tied up my hair haphazardly, straightened my back. He looked at me for a long time, then looked at my sister, suddenly grinned. Interesting, two women fighting to be the obstacle. She reached out and fiercely pinched my chin, with a force that felt like it would crush my bones. "You say you are." I endured the severe pain in my chin, and said with my head held high, "It is me, it is me." My sister's eyes turned red with anxiety, struggling desperately. "Xiaoman, you're crazy. Come back quickly." The barbarian general glared at him, impatiently waved his hand. My sister grunted, and collapsed on the ground. "Sister," I shouted with all my might, wanting to rush over, but was held down tightly by the barbarians. The barbarian general pinched my chin and leaned close to me. His foul breath sprayed on my face. "Lu Zheng, that kid has good taste. Much better than this ugly monster." He paused. "You said you have the tiger tally." My heart skipped a beat, knowing I had gambled correctly. What the barbarians wanted most was the military power of the Great Dynasty. General Lu feared the tiger tally falling into your hands, so he entrusted it to me for safekeeping. "You release everyone, and it'll take you to find it." The barbarian general's eyes lit up, clearly tempted, but he thought for a moment, and sneered, "Do you think I am an idiot? Something as important as the tiger tally. He would give it to a woman." Before he finished speaking, his fist smashed hard onto my nose bridge. Intense pain instantly swept across my face. My vision went black from the pain, but I gritted my teeth and refused to beg for mercy. He was still not satisfied, and raised his whip, and lashed me fiercely, again and again. I curled up on the ground, trembling all over, but staring at him intently, muttering curses like damn barbarians. You will not die a good death. The barbarian general was enraged, raised his whip and was about to strike my head. Just then, a earth-shattering roar of killing suddenly came from afar. Kill the rebels, kill them. The barbarian voices grew closer and closer. The barbarians' faces changed drastically. They all turned their heads to look. They saw on the distant hillside. Dense figures were rushing over. They were wearing tattered cloth clothes, holding hoes, axes and wooden sticks. There were even carrying poles. But each of them had red eyes, like tigers descending from the mountain, rushing towards this side desperately. It's the militia, Prince Yin's militia. The barbarian general's face turned ashen. He hurriedly ordered them to meet the enemy, but his subordinates had already panicked. How could they still be in the mood to fight? The militia surged like a tide, instantly scattering the barbarian ranks. The barbarian general saw that the situation was not good. He grabbed my collar and lifted me up. He shouted sternly, "Everyone stop. If you move again, I'll kill him." The militiamen at the forefront indeed stopped their steps. Their eyes were wide with anger, but they dared not step forward. I was extremely anxious, struggling desperately, shouting "Kill!" in my mouth. "Don't mind me, kill these bastards." The barbarian general was so angry that his face turned ashen. He raised his hand to hit me. I seized the opportunity and fiercely grabbed the silver hairpin on my head and stabbed it into the belly of the warhorse next to me. The warhorse felt the pain. It suddenly reared up on its front hooves, letting out a mournful neigh. The immense force knocked the barbarian general to the ground. I also rolled out, falling to the ground. I ignored the pain, crawling forward with my hands and feet. Behind me, the sound of hooves, shouts and screams merged into one. Just as the barbarian general got up and charged at me with his saber, a familiar figure suddenly rushed out from the crowd. He swung his arm and hurled a large stone fiercely. The stone hit its mark right on the barbarian general. The barbarian general cried out in pain. Covering his eyes, he fell to the ground. I looked up. Dust covered that person's face. One eye was bandaged, but the remaining eye, I was all too familiar with it. It was Chen Ju. He wasn't dead. He was back. I couldn't hold back.